The title, Evolution of American Thought, doesn't really make justice to what the course was. Throughout the 5 projects that we had, we were more encouraged to think the way that we want to think rather than the way that America has evolved its thoughts. We always tend to think that no matter how it is that people think, no matter the social setting in which we are in, that we are coerced into trying to think a certain way. Now, I believe that that is not true, and I think that this course proved exactly what I think that this course proved exactly what we were trying to figure. Um, on project one, for example, we were on project one. We were in project one. We were encouraged to encourage in project one. We were encouraged to think about our own experiences and try to modulate. In project one, we were encouraged to think about our own harsh experience or good experiences and put that into words, trying to control these emotions that we have inside of us, trying to control these thoughts in our heads and try to put them into pen and paper. Now, a lot of times that is very hard because nowadays our thoughts are so complex and so out of this world that not necessarily are we able to put these things into words and try to put them into context for other people to understand. Our thoughts are very rational, and from that on, we tend to overcomplicate things. We tend to kind of try to understand what it is that we're doing. So, trying to put our thoughts and our emotions into a paper, into an essay, is really hard. But the fact of the matter is that we managed to do it and managed to get people to understand the way that we felt about that certain experience, trying to make people understand, people that weren't there, people that didn't see what happened, try to get them to understand what it is that you were doing. And at the same time, with Project 2, it kind of went the other way. It went us trying to understand what something else meant to other people. So with a cultural artifact, in fact, we were challenged to choose a artifact that was very significant to a large group of people and try to understand why is that significant. Why is it that we are trying to make this a cultural artifact? Why is this a cultural artifact, in fact? And with the soccer ball, which is the topic that I went on, it really came down to the fact that this sport called soccer was really embedded into the culture and the religion of a certain country, not just one country, but a lot of people, most entirely worldwide, with Europe and South America being the 2 main spots for soccer. Um, Also, this comes back to the fact that what we are trying to understand here is evolution of thought, is how did we start thinking and how that has evolved into what we consider to be thought today. This is very hard because not everyone thinks the same way, and not everyone is going to do the same things. Now, it is perfectly understandable that when someone is trying to understand what you are saying, they'll try to put themselves in your shoes. But at the same time, those who know how to speak publicly very well are able to put themselves in other people's shoes while they express their own opinions, trying to express their thoughts and emotions into words in a way that other people will understand, in a way that they will know other people understand. That is when things such as languages, slangs, or even just hand gestures by themselves come into place because they add to what you're saying. If I speak to someone in English and that person doesn't speak English, it's no use. I can speak as much as I want, as clear as I want. That person won't understand. They won't be able to think the way that I'm thinking because my trail of thought is different whether it is in English, Portuguese, or Spanish. I'm the same person. Nonetheless, because of the language, I change my trail of thought. The same thing that whether I'm at a meeting, whether I'm in my room, or whether I'm doing a video for the class, my trail of thought will always keep changing because it is stimulated by the outside sources. Now, on Project 3, we had to do a remix of one of the previous 2 projects and try to add to what we had previously done. With these, we had to kind of go outside the box, try to understand what it is that we can add to these projects because it was already one big challenge to try to get these thoughts out, try to make people understand these thoughts and try to understand people's thoughts. Now we had to take it to another level. We had to up the ante. We were supposed to take things outside the box. And that is also very hard because nowadays we're in the age of innovation, an age where people are so creative that it comes to a point where people are left with this urge of, what am I going to do? What is it that I can try to understand? What is it that people want? What do they want to see? With Project 4, it went back to Project 2. It was try to understand people's feelings, try to understand what they are saying, but furthermore, try to understand professional thinking. Because when it comes to emotional thinking, it's very personal. It's very, it comes from one person alone. So you're trying to understand what each person individually is thinking. When you're thinking about a profession has a set of rules. They are very inanimate, they're very strict, and they don't have a lot of leeway. Now, the thing with a profession is that every person that does that profession will have a different view about it. So whether you're talking whether you're talking with a CEO or a manager or an employee, they'll have different views about the path that they're taking. A CEO has gone through all those things, a manager has gone through some things, and an employee has yet to go through a lot of things. So even though they have the same title in terms of profession, all the three of them can be engineers, the CEO will have more experiences in engineering and a different view about the engineering profession than the manager, who's had not so much experience, or the employee who's had nearly to no experience. And with Project 4, we were trying to, one, choose a profession that we thought would have this kind of difference between each other and try to understand its culture, try to understand why people choose this profession and what does it make it special. What is the people that are in this profession have that differs themselves from others. We had to talk to two people that knew something about the profession. Two people that were experts in trying to do this. People that were either in this profession for a while or could possibly know about it. Now, regardless of which two people anyone in the group chose to talk to, the fact of the matter is that either they had very similar views or very different views. But in the end, we can analyze that a profession in itself is by all means very, very specific. It has a very specific set of rules. And if I chose someone that's an engineer, those two people that I interviewed as engineers will have the mentality of the engineering profession. Compared to someone else who might have chosen a lawyer, that person has a much more humanistic view than a much more logical, materialistic view than an engineer. So the views between those two professions will clash. Those are two ways of thinking. Beyond our personal thinking, we have the professional thinking. Now, our personal thinking is always going to be unique. Our professional thinking is going to be different between what someone else is doing and what their profession is. Engineers can think the same way. However, engineers and lawyers can't. Because their views in terms of professionalism, in terms of their profession, will always be different. We're talking about evolution of thought. We're talking about how our thoughts are different from others and how, the way that we will always be thinking is always going to be different. It will always be changing. It will always be what we seek to understand about others. So in the end, I believe that no matter what it is that we do, no matter what it is that we want to do, the way that we think, the way that we go about things is always going to be different from other people. But beyond that, we can't base ourselves on understanding what we want. Because the way that we think, the way that we understand people will always change. Thinking is always evolving. The way that we think, the way that we express ourselves, the way that we the way that we think, the way that we talk, the way we interact with people, it's always changing. It's always very out there. It's very exposed to the outside world. That's why media nowadays has a massive effect on people, because they are able to get these stimulate people's minds into thinking a certain way. So an example of this would be just mass media news. Not always are they right, they've been proved to be wrong, but nonetheless, they speak in a way that is so stimulative to people that people will think the way that they want to think. That's why news nowadays, newscasters are not very reliable, because they've been known to twist and turn their sources and the news and the information that they have to try to make people understand better what they want you to understand. There's a difference between pure information and the information that's been read by someone. When you read that pure information, you get to interpret it. When you listen to that information from someone else, it's not pure anymore, because that person unconsciously will change things in that information to make you think the way that they are thinking. And I believe that that, in a nutshell, is what we kind of try to understand and try to learn in this course, is not only try to understand how our thought is evolving and how we can keep up with trying to understand our own thought and try to expand that out to people, but also how other people's thoughts are evolving. How it is that the world itself, as a matter of thought and expression and emotion, is evolving. Going outside the box for a project nowadays is very hard. We've gone through so much innovation in the last couple of years that it is nearly impossible to understand how how we can kind of go onto undiscovered places. A way of expressing yourself nowadays is vlogging, is video logging. In other words, it's trying to speak to a camera as if you're talking to an audience and try to expand your thoughts into those people, trying to make them understand what it is that you want to tell them, what it is that you are thinking. And I think that is what I've tried to do in Project 5. This is what I'm trying to do now, is try to reach an audience that I don't know which one will be through my thoughts. Now, this poses a challenge to the one doing the vlogging, because I'm trying to share my thoughts with an unknown audience. So I don't know how I need to adapt my speech for that audience to understand it. And that is what becomes a challenge, is me trying to adapt my speech so that everyone will understand what it is that I'm saying. And I think that is the culmination of this course, is I've evolved my thought long enough to be able to reach different audiences at once and try to get as many people understanding my point of view as possible. I believe that this course was by far one of my most useful courses that I've taken so far, because I'm a person who likes to talk a lot. I'm a person who likes to express my thoughts and get my opinions and ideas out there a lot. And I think that this kind of helped me to understand better what it is that I'm seeking, what it is that I want to express to people. Not just the job that I want to have, for example, from Project 4, but also trying to fix what it is that becomes what I can't communicate to other people, and try to understand people better. So, on a nutshell, for the 5 projects, for Project 1, I had to express myself out there. I had to put my emotions out there and try to make people understand me. For Project 2, I had to do the opposite. I had to go out there and fish out for those emotions and for those thoughts and try to understand them and put them into words. For Project 3, it was taking Project 1 and Project 2 to a new level, trying to up the ante for everything. For Project 4, it was taking those thoughts and those concepts into a professional area, into a work area. And finally, Project 5, which is this one, the final project for the semester, it was analyzing everything that I've done so far and trying to understand what it is that I learned throughout this entire course, what it is that I learned throughout the whole process. I believe that everything that I have done throughout the semester has culminated into me being a better communicator to other people. Not just in the way that I write, but beyond that, the way that I speak and ultimately the way that I think. Because the way that we think nowadays is very stimulated by outside sources. And I believe that finally I was able to control my thoughts and be able to uh, tell them in a different manner, in a more understandable manner to other people. I'm Juan Ignacio Zaina, and this is my Project 5. Thank you.